All right, welcome to the Explainer. Today we're diving into a tool that tackles something we all feel, that constant, never-ending change at work. It's called Team Decoder.
Okay, so let's just get right into it. Does this sound familiar to you? I mean, you work so hard to get your team on the same page, right? Everyone's humming along, and then, bam, a new strategy drops, or a new top priority, or, my personal favorite, another reorg. And suddenly, it feels like all that work just vanished. You're back to square one, kind of drowning in chaos.
You know, it's just this relentless cycle, isn't it? The reorgs feel like they never stop, the big picture strategy is always shifting, and what does that mean for you and your team on the ground? Well, it's just chaos. And this isn't just you feeling this way, this is the reality for so many teams out there just trying to do their job.
Okay, but here's what's really interesting. The whole idea behind Team Decoder is to flip the script. It says, hey, let's stop treating change like this fire we constantly have to put out. Instead, what if we could actually build the capacity for change? Like, bake it right into the DNA of how our teams operate. It's not about surviving change, it's about getting good at it.
So this brings us to what you could call the modern work paradox. And it's all about this fundamental clash, a clash between our big ideas and how we're actually set up to execute them.
And here's the paradox in a nutshell. Every time a new strategy comes out, your team's structure, how you're organized, it has to adapt for that strategy to have any chance of success. But here's the problem. We are great at announcing new plans, but we're not so great at actually reshaping our teams to make those plans a reality.
And you know what? This is exactly where our old, trusted tools just completely fall apart. I'm talking about things like the classic org chart or those massive project plans. They feel like they should be the answer, but in a world that's constantly moving, they just can't keep up.
Think about it. The old way, making an org chart in PowerPoint or a giant board in Miro, it's fundamentally static. It's a snapshot in time. And honestly, it's probably out of date the second you hit save. And because they're such a pain to keep updated, what happens? They just become these artifacts. They're documents that get filed away, not living, breathing tools that actually spark a useful conversation or, lead to any real action.
And let's be real, this is what happens, right? We've all been there. You spend hours making these beautiful charts, only for them to turn into what you could call digital graveyards. They're created once with all the best intentions in the world, and then, poof, they're ignored. Just sitting there, collecting digital dust, while the real work and the real team have already moved on.
Okay, so if the old way is broken, what do we do? What's the alternative? Well, the Team Decoder approach is interesting because it's not about making a prettier document. It's about building an entirely new habit for your team.
And the principles behind it are just super pragmatic. First off, it's ideology-free. This isn't some rigid my way or the highway framework you have to force fit onto your team. It's also playful. It actually encourages you to experiment and see what works. But the big one, the most important one, is that it's habit-focused. The whole point isn't to create a perfect piece of paper. The point is to have a really good conversation that gets everyone on the same page.
So how do you build this habit? It's built around this repeatable ritual they call the campfire process. I love that name because it's all about the team gathering around, to have a real focused talk. In these regular meetings, the team literally maps out what everyone is actually doing, not what their job description says. Then they address workloads to match reality. FTE, by the way, just means full-time equivalent, so you're making sure that one person isn't secretly pulling 80 hours a week on a 40-hour job. Then you align on the real top priorities. And, this is key, you actively hunt down any confusion, any gaps in clarity, and you close them.
Okay, so how do you actually run one of these campfire process sessions? Well, that is where the tool itself comes into play. So let's see how Team Decoder actually makes this happen.
The first aha moment that people have with this tool is apparently pretty profound. Imagine a team lead, right? They're in their first workshop, and they start mapping out what their team is really working on day to day. And suddenly, it's right there in front of them, plain as day. The official job descriptions, they're basically fiction.
The tool shines a huge spotlight on all the hidden work, the people who are totally overloaded, and maybe most scary of all, the really important stuff that nobody actually owns.
So let's be super clear about what this thing is and what it isn't. It's not just another documentation tool that's going to end up in that digital graveyard. It is a framework to have better discussions. It's not some big, clunky, top-down HR system. It is a simple, practical habit for team leads, the people actually on the ground. And really, it's all about making your human team work better together, which is so critical in the hybrid world we all live in now.
Okay, so you might be thinking, this all sounds nice, but does it actually work? Well, what happens when a team really adopts this new habit? The results are pretty staggering, and they're backed by data. So let's dig into the impact.
First off, the impact on just team well-being. It's huge, and it's fast. We're talking a 74% reduction in stress, a 40% drop in burnout. I mean, these aren't just tiny little improvements. This is a massive, fundamental shift in the health of a team. And what's driving it? It's all just from getting clear on who does what.
But it's not just about getting rid of the bad stuff. The boost to the positive side is even more dramatic. Get this, with all this new clarity, teams report their energy levels go up by 106%.
And that energy, it translates directly into a 76% jump in engagement. And that's the real difference, right? The difference between a team that's just clocking in and out and one that is genuinely invested in the work.
And it all leads up to the number that, let's be honest, every single leader cares about: a 50% increase in team productivity. That, right there, is the power of moving your team from total chaos to crystal clarity.
So at the end of the day, that next strategy, that next reorg, that next big curveball, you know it's coming. It's never a matter of if, it's always a matter of when. And so that leaves all of us with a really important question to think about. When it does arrive, is your team's structure actually ready for it?